Welcome back to this explainer from Forge College. Okay, first off, huge congratulations are in order. If you're tuning in today, that means you actually survived our last lesson on benchmarking and reporting results. I know measuring strict gas limits and wrestling with deterministic royalty calculations, yeah, not exactly a walk in the park. But hey, you made it. And honestly, all that hard work is going to pay off massively right now. Why? Because today, we're making a really thrilling shift. We're stepping away from those traditional, static, completely frozen in time NFTs, and we are diving headfirst into the vibrant, mutating world of dynamic metadata. So here is our engineering blueprint for today. We'll be looking at 1. Meet dynamic metadata, 2. 3 storage structures, 3. The living document, 4. Who has the power, 5. The dynamic lifecycle, and 6. Evolving collectible blueprint. It's a lot, I know, and the stakes are pretty high here, but don't worry, we're going to architect it all perfectly.
All right, Section 1, Meet dynamic metadata.
To really get why we even need this, we kind of have to look at the main problem with traditional NFTs. For the longest time, the absolute gold standard was permanence, right? You mint it, you freeze it, and it just stays exactly the same forever. But what if you want a game character that actually levels up? Or maybe a membership pass that changes based on how you vote in governance? Suddenly, that whole frozen in time thing becomes a massive roadblock. So, enter dynamic metadata. It's basically a shape for your data that lets an NFT's descriptive attributes change after the mint. This unlocks some incredibly cool behaviors: evolving traits, time-based content, deep interactivity, the whole shebang. But, and this is a pretty big but here, adding this upgrade means you're introducing new state transitions and entirely new external dependencies, meaning all the strict rules about gas limits, predictable contract interfaces, and determinism that you painstakingly learned in the benchmarking lesson, yeah, they apply directly here too. You can't just change data willy-nilly. It has to be rigorously engineered.
Moving right along to Section 2, 3 storage structures.
Now, if our data is going to be mutating, we hit our first massive architectural decision. Where exactly does this changing data actually live? This table brilliantly illustrates your 3 main options. If you go with fully on-chain JSON, your censorship resistance is absolute, off the charts. But the gas cost for update is just painfully high. You're literally paying for every single byte. On the flip side, we have pointer-based systems like IPFS or hash-on-chain models. These are incredibly cheap to update, mostly because you're just changing a tiny reference or a little hash instead of a whole image. But the trade-off, you're now totally dependent on off-chain hosting and pinning services. So it's this constant balancing act between gas costs and decentralization. All right, Section 3, the living document. Let's shift our focus from where the data physically lives to the mental model of how we actually structure this data inside our smart contract. I really want you to burn this concept into your brain. Think of an NFT's metadata as a living document with a small immutable header and a mutable body. I love this. It's not just a fun metaphor. This is absolutely the core mental model you need for designing dynamic tokens that won't just completely fall apart in production. Notice how cleanly we can separate these two parts. The immutable header holds the stuff that must stay deterministic forever. We're talking the token serial number, the original minter, the foundational provenance hash. You literally never touch these. Then you have the mutable body. This is where all the fun happens: the current appearance, a token's in-game level, or dynamic ownership badges. Drawing a hard, strict line between what is permanent and what changes is absolutely crucial. If you don't separate them, you risk triggering accidental permanent states, or even worse, completely wiping out a token's core identity during what was supposed to be a routine update. Which brings us to Section 4. Who has the power? This begs a pretty obvious question, right? If the NFT's body can change, who is actually allowed to hold the pen and write those changes to the blockchain? Well, we generally see 3 suspects here. First up, role-based access, like a developer multisig. It's super easy to build, but congratulations, you've just centralized your Web3 project. Then there's token holder-driven updates. This is incredibly empowering, letting owners change their own NFT names and stuff. But honestly, if you don't charge a fee, get ready for endless spam attacks on your contract. And third, Oracle-driven updates. These are amazing for triggering off-chain game events, but they introduce the sheer chaos of relying on external dependencies being online 24/7. So pick your poison carefully. Let's look at Section 5, the dynamic lifecycle. You see, dynamic NFTs aren't just born and then immediately forgotten. Because they change, they have to follow a very specific mechanical operational life cycle. You can trace the life of a token through these 3 distinct stages. Minute 0 is the mint stage. That's where you set that immutable header we just talked about. Then comes the Wild West, the active update stage, which runs from day 1 to year X. Listen, every single mutation during this window needs strict rules and bounds. And finally, the archive stage, where you explicitly freeze the metadata so it basically becomes a permanent historical artifact. Now, during that chaotic active update stage, versioning is your absolute safety net. Every mutation must increase a version counter or emit a distinct versioned event log. Why? Because without it, front-end developers are going to lose their minds trying to reconstruct prior states. Versioning is quite literally how you survive contract upgrades. It ensures that off-chain indexers can actually follow the history of your evolving token without breaking the whole system.
Finally, Section 6, Evolving Collectible Blueprint.
To wrap things up, let's bring all these abstract theories down to earth by tearing down a real-world example. Here's our evolving collectible blueprint. We're going to look at 4 operational steps for an NFT that levels up based on off-chain gameplay. 1. Mint and initial state. 2. Authorized oracle level up. 3. Owner cosmetic change. And 4. Freeze and archive. Let's zoom right into the actual on-chain mechanics. Step 1 is the mint. We set the level to 1, assign an initial IPFS pointer, and emit a version 0 event. Now remember our focus on gas costs? Your unit tests here need to ensure that this initial state, both the level and the pointer, is perfectly packed into a single uint256 word. That is essentially the smallest, most standard data container on Ethereum. Minimizing gas right from the start? Yeah, that's what separates the amateurs from the pros. Moving to step 2, the level up. Here, our game oracle verifies the player's XP off-chain and then calls our contract to increment the level and update the pointer. So the absolutely crucial point here, you have to test this against edge cases. Think about it. What happens if the oracle accidentally double calls the function in the exact same block? Your contract absolutely must be written to prevent skipping levels or, burning double the gas for no reason. Steps 3 and 4, cosmetic tweaks and the freeze. We want to let the owner change the display name, but we have to require a fee and set strict character limits to prevent censorship vectors. Like, you really don't want someone trying to write a 1,000,000-character string just to break your front-end UI, right? And finally, governance calls freeze appearance. Boom, the token is locked. It goes from being this dynamic, living document to a permanent, immutable relic of Web3 history. So, just to summarize our blueprint, here are your engineering non-negotiables. Separate your immutable identity from your mutable attributes. Use compact on-chain representations to save on gas. Always bake versioning into your mutation paths. And design a strict lifecycle from mint to archive. By the way, if you're finding this architecture as fascinating as I do, diving into the advanced Web3 learning programs over at Forge College is honestly the perfect way to turn these concepts into concrete engineering habits. Before we go, I'm going to leave you with this somewhat provocative thought. If your dynamic token's body relies entirely on an off-chain oracle, and that oracle server goes offline permanently, does your NFTs still actually exist, or is it just a ghost in the machine? Ponder that terrifying thought for a bit, because in our next lesson, we are going to tackle concrete on-chain storage strategies to prevent exactly that doomsday scenario. Until then, keep experimenting and be sure to visit forge.college to learn more about this subject and explore our other deep dives into Web3 development. Thanks for joining this explainer, and we'll see you next time.